Hello and welcome to Alternative to Meds podcast. I'm your host, Debbie Nelson, and I am so happy and pleased to introduce Dr. MaRanda Herring. She is a pharmacist gone TikToker who is blowing up the internet with her message of integrative medicine. Welcome. How are you today, MaRanda?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, every time I go out, and Alternative to Meds has created this activist platform to link like-minded professionals. And so what we do is for every person that is seeking mental health or reprieve, these are all people or modalities or products that we feel are beneficial. And if they're great, move on for it. So with MaRanda, I found her because her story is so very unusual, but can you share a little bit about your journey from being a pharmacist into this type of work?
Absolutely, sure. So I am actually board certified in ambulatory care. I've been in healthcare for a little over 20 years, and I got my doctorate of pharmacy from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center in Memphis. I did a residency, and I taught pharmacy school for 9 years. I worked in the clinical setting, and during that time, I worked with doctors to help optimize medication therapy. So I was helping people to get to the right dose, choosing the right medication, helping to get their medication paid for. But then for people who had problems with that medication, needed to come off of it, I was involved in the process of tapering medication. And so that was a part of my job, something that I did for years to help other people. But what I found for myself was that, like many type A health professionals and other professionals out there, when it came to managing my own health, it had really become more of a, I don't have time to do the things, there's a pill for that. And so I found myself in a situation where I was taking multiple medications to manage anxiety, depression, difficulty sleeping, acid reflux. And I really kind of had to step back from that as a pharmacist and say, wait a second, you wouldn't do this with one of your patients. You would say to your patient, okay, this medication is causing that side effect, and that's why we're on this medication. So let's see what we can discontinue. Let's get you down to the things that you absolutely have to have, and let's make some lifestyle changes to manage the things that we can. But as a type A career focused woman, I had become that person that depended on the pill rather than the person that was practicing what I preached. And so I really I found myself in a situation where I was experiencing a lot of side effects, and I really wanted to do for myself what I had done for others. And the goal for me was to get off of antidepressants because I was having so many side effects from antidepressants. And a lot of people don't realize that they can get on an antidepressant because they have low mood, or they're struggling with intrusive thoughts, or struggling with sleep or whatever. And then they end up with maybe worsening mood, more irritability, weight gain, feeling disconnected from the people that they care about, low sex drive, men, erectile dysfunction, constipation, nausea, all these other side effects. So I was experiencing all these other side effects, and I really wanted to get off of the medication. And I didn't really have a solution. It was like, well, I could do a different medication, but I didn't want to do a different medication. I wanted to find a solution. I wanted to fix the problem. So I was teaching pharmacy school, I was working in the clinic, and I just sort of was like, you know what? I have all the skills, I have all the tools, I have all the knowledge. I'm going to dig into the medical research, and I'm going to find out what we know about the root cause of mental illness, because we don't really teach that in modern medicine. We 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 have these guidelines, and we start with medications. And so I was like, I want to dig into this. And I had taught some about the gut brain axis and about emerging science. And I thought, we have learned in the last 15 years that the majority of the neurotransmitters that are associated with mental illness are made in the GI tract by bacteria. Most people don't know that. We take a medication that alters the way our nerve cells work, that alters the way our brain works, to change the way that we use serotonin with all these antidepressants. But 90% of our serotonin is made in our GI tract by bacteria. And I was like, what if my whole issue is that I'm just not making enough serotonin in my GI tract? And what if I could find a way to increase the production of that serotonin in a natural way? So I dug into the medical literature and I was able to find hundreds of studies that had identified specific strains of probiotic bacteria that were responsible for making those neurotransmitters that support mental health: serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and GABA. Those are the neurotransmitters that we target with this medication. And so I thought, what if I can find the strains of bacteria that alter that, and I can increase the production of that in my GI tract naturally with the right probiotics. So I did tons of research. I found the probiotics. I made a list. Like, these are the probiotics that have been shown clinically beneficial. But then when I went and looked, nobody was making them, because we call them psychobiotics now, and they're become more popular. But several years ago, they were very new, and no one was making them. So I had to go out and find a company that was actually producing a product that I could purchase to sort of do my own little experiment. And so that's when I found the mental wellness company, Amare Global, the mental wellness company is the first company to have developed a probiotic product that you could take. And so I started taking that along with 2 other supplements. So they have combined nootropics, which support mental health, cognitive function, so those thinking and focusing and motivation pieces, with adaptogens, which can help to rebalance cortisol, and the psychobiotics, which actually target that that issue with poor production of neurotransmitters. So we combined all of those products into one supplement that we call Happy Juice. And I started drinking that, and of course, working closely with my doctor and with the support of my doctor, I was able to get off of some of my medication within about 6 weeks. Now, it took me 17 months to taper Effexor. That was a process, but I didn't need it anymore. I was on it that long because getting off of it too quickly was leading to withdrawal symptoms. But I have been completely off of any kind of medication for mental health for 6 months.
It
And
makes one wonder when someone originally gets on the Effexor, that if they had started something of this nature, maybe first, we're not talking about serious conditions, but depression, the various things. I've gone through a divorce. My child is the normal things that moms or spouses or people in general will go in. I've experienced a death of a loved one. They get put on these medications, and oftentimes their body just needs this support. But I always call them not drug tapers, because when traditional people go to their psychiatrists, I say they're drug transfers, because doctors don't know what else to do other than transfer you to a different medication when the symptoms and the withdrawals start being so severe. And they attribute it to, well, you really need the medication, not the withdrawal symptoms. And so that's like our specialty as well, where we understand like that underlying condition. The metaphor I always use with people is, if you're going to decide you want to taper, it's kind of like training to do a marathon. And you don't decide you're going to run a marathon tomorrow and do it in a week. You train for it so that you complete the marathon and you have success. And there's people that finish first, and then there's people that finish all the way at the end, but it doesn't matter, you still finish the race. So that's what we're really ultimately looking for, is someone to be able to finish it. So when we find people that are professionals like yourself, I love it, just because there's so many individuals that are suffering that don't know this. And the beauty about it is, like you said, this is science.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And what you said was, there are so many people that experience a death or a trauma, or they have this experience in their life. And it's kind of like what I said about, I was so focused on career, and I'm a mom, and I'm juggling all the things, and I didn't have time to stop and grieve and process trauma and deal with life. So I took the pill so I could just keep going. And I think that's really where we are as a society, is that we don't really have time to grieve and process trauma. And what happens is when we're in those sustained periods of trauma and grief, then we experience high levels of cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. Well, from a pharmaceutical and biological perspective, when those steroids are high in your body, it damages our gut microbiome. So when we have these sustained levels of cortisol, when we experience a shock or a trauma, it actually causes some of that good bacteria to die off. And so we're not making as much serotonin. And if you were to graph it, what you see is that as cortisol levels go up, that serotonin levels in our body go down. And so what we think from the research is that that cortisol leads to damage in the gut microbiome, and that if we could really focus on that, then we could manage that stress acutely a whole lot better. And what a lot of people don't know about the medications is, and there are tons of people that do well with medications, and I am not against that. If you need it, you need it. But for me, when I experienced a trauma that put me in this downward spin where I needed something quickly, I ended up on a medication that I ended up staying on for 4 years, because I very quickly became physically dependent on that. And with antidepressants, physical dependence can develop within 2 to 3 weeks. And so you may not even be at maximum benefit yet, and your body has already become physically dependent on it. And so, whereas a lot of people think, well, I'm going to take this just while I'm going through this difficult time, nobody tells them you're not just going to be able to do it for 3 months, because you do it for 3 or 4 months. It might take you a year to get off of it. A lot of people stay on antidepressants because it's so hard to get off. It's just easier just to stay on and keep paying that copay, even if it's not working anymore. And I see people that the people reach out to me and they say, I've been on this for 20 years and it's not doing anything for me. Can I just stop? And the answer is no,
Yeah.
you
We
can't.
matter of fact, usually I'll say throughout our podcast, but I'll interject again. Alternative to meds is about finding root issues. Any medications, you have to be seeking professionals' help in order to do this and do it safely and effectively. Never discontinue the use of something serious like a psychiatric medicine overnight. The ramifications are physical and emotional and catastrophic for many, many people. And I think most people get to that point where they feel like it's not doing them any good, so they just quit. But a responsible professional would never, ever advocate for someone just to quit. So you need to work with a professional. So
Absolutely.
we say that throughout, just like the doctor just finished saying that. We preface it saying the reason we do these interviews is to get credible professionals out there on our platforms so that you can select and find people who can help you with your problems, and you can do your own research. So well, how do you see, I mean, you got into all the microbiome. So how did you see the microbiome contributing overall? So once you got this and you received this knowledge, and all of a sudden this light bulb went off, what did you strategize and what products and things? You said you got this list, you found the company, but then how long did you said it was 6 weeks, but then longer for Lexapro. But you started using this particular company, right, for your product, right?
Yes.
And
So
then
this was the only company that was making a psychobiotic at the time, and they're very innovative, and I continue to work very closely with them. They have a lot of great products that I love, and I do promote most of their products. But if that's not the right product for someone, we'll go another route. I do work closely with people to meet their individualized needs. But where was I going with it?
it's hard.
I got
Well,
off track.
in the grand scheme of things, when we're talking the microbiome, how important do you see it and in shape of the mental health issues? I mean, in the
Okay.
grand scheme of things, how important is it?
In the grand scheme of things, I think it is the I feel like it's the most important thing. And let me tell you why. We continue to see these record cases of people in our country experiencing mental health issues. The number of people with mental health issues continues to go up. And people blame that on a lot of different things. And there are definitely compounding factors. But the consistent thing that you can see as we see mental health issues go up is you can see that we're eating more fast food, we're eating less whole food, we're eating more processed food. We're also taking more medication. And again, I am a pharmacist. I'm not anti-medication by any means, but I am an advocate of responsible medication use. And as we introduce new things to our body and introduce new things to our microbiome, whether that's new medications or whether that's processed foods, certain artificial sweeteners, trans fats. These are things that the bacteria that have lived in our GI tract for thousands of years are just now being exposed to. And they're changing the pH of our GI tract. When we change the pH of our GI tract, then it makes our GI tract more a better environment for certain things and not such a great environment for other things. And so we're creating an environment in our GI tract that's not conducive for the life of these good bacteria because of our lifestyle, because of the way that we're eating and the things that we're putting into our body. And so if you look at the clinical data, 90% of our serotonin is made in our GI tract. But the majority, I would say 95% of the antidepressants that are on the market work on serotonin receptors. The serotonin receptor isn't the problem. It's the fact that we're not making enough serotonin. And we can manage symptoms by altering the way that our body uses serotonin, or we can focus on the root cause, which seems to be that we have low levels of serotonin in our body because we're damaging the little microorganisms in there that make that. So what we're doing with the medication is we're altering the 10%, but with the probiotic, we can alter the 90% and make a really big impact in a very natural way. So that gut bacteria doesn't just make serotonin. It makes over 50% of our GABA. It makes 70% of our dopamine, which is converted to norepinephrine and epinephrine. And all of these are essential neurotransmitters that don't just support mental health, but they support other physical processes in our body as well. So it really does come back to the fact that what we eat matters.
Yeah.
The things that we put into our body. And when we eat something, it doesn't just, I think we sort of have this idea in our mind that you eat an apple and all the good stuff just gets sucked out into your bloodstream and your body knows what to do with it. And there's so much more to it than that. It has to be broken down. The nutrients have to be extracted. And then these bacteria are part of the process of taking those nutrients and rebuilding them into something new that our body can use. And so we really have a symbiotic relationship with this good bacteria that lives in our GI tract. And it is an essential part of our life and how our body functions. And I think that as we continue to do more research, that you're going to see that these probiotics are involved in more systems than we realize.
So in your opinion, do you feel that most people that are suffering it are actually dealing with microbiome issues, mental health issues? That's what we found with alternative meds. Our number one focus when people will come, we have a residential, but when they come to our center is how do we rebuild the microbiome? Number one, we teach people food is mood. Number two, how to detox the body, because you're right, we are consuming things that are actually damaging our GI tracts. We teach people about, environmental toxins. We're putting it on our body. We're using it on our skin. We're shampooing our hair with, toxins, and all of these things. We have microbiome on our skin, and they're starting to actually recognize that we have done grave damage for our health, for our mental health. I was an example of that. I had horrible UTI issues, and I was put on Cipro on a regular basis. on a regular basis. And so, unbeknownst to me, my ADD is getting worse, my anxiety is getting worse, and never was the correlation made that I'm literally annihilating what microbiome I have in order to feed my brain. So it wasn't
Yeah.
until I got into this world of integrative, which ironically you would think it would be common because this is science. We're not talking about something that's a placebo effect or somebody not really, we really understand, we're getting to understand more and more how much our food is directly correlated to our mood, and the microbiome is being absolutely essential, vital part. So, but like you said, there's a place for medicine. Just like I said before, like it doesn't mean I had a UTI infection. So what I was going to do now, you have to understand that with rounds of antibiotics, each round of antibiotics depletes that serotonin, right? Depletes all of the microbiome. So the only way to repopulate it is by doing, probiotics and dietary changes in order to start repopulating it. So this product line that you became, how long altogether did it take you to get off totally from your medications, would you say?
I was off of my other medications within 3 months. But it took 17 months to get off of Effexor because it was such a slow process. But I was able to get off of Clonopin, Buspar, Protonics, my allergy medications. And again, I was working closely with my doctor. I have a great relationship with her. And I was actually at my doctor's office a couple of days ago, and we were talking, and I said, you have beautiful skin. What do you use for your skin? And she said, well, I'm a supplement girl like you. And I'm like, I know. And so we were talking, and it's funny because, we're all trained on traditional Western medicine, but then some of us, we just want to know more. And so we dig in and we learn more and more. And they say, when you know better, you do better. And so she and I had a great talk about that as well. We aren't getting the things that we need from our food. And we forget that food is not really for entertainment. We use food for entertainment in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It really is to nourish our body. And most of the time we're grabbing it and we're going. And if we have a food experience, it is an entertaining experience. It's not so much like, why am I putting this into my body? And that's one of the reasons we need so many supplements, is because we're not getting the things that we need from our food. But it's interesting that you said that about being on Cipro, because there's a study, and I don't know what the citation is right now, but one study that came out a couple of years ago that showed that being on an antibiotic increases your risk of developing depressive symptoms within 6 months by 20 to 70%, depending on what antibiotic you're on. It's because it kills off that good bacteria. And so I'm like you. If I have a UTI, I want an antibiotic, but I know what to do in order to replenish that good bacteria. And so actually, let me just go ahead and throw that in. If you are on an antibiotic, one of the best things that you can do, first of all, get the right type of probiotic, and feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to visit with you about selecting a probiotic. But you want to take a probiotic either 2 hours before or 2 hours after you take your antibiotic. Because if you take it at the same time, that antibiotic's just going to kill off the good stuff that you're adding in. So that's how you get the most out of a probiotic when you're on an antibiotic.
Okay, so in your role as being an advocate in this world of people that are trying to do this, I mean, you came onto TikTok, is there anything that you wish that you could debunk about what's going on? I mean, there's a lot of controversy. If people will come out and they'll make different statements, and alternative meds, we've been here in Sedona going on 20 years. So we've been doing this for a while. And when the company first started, when he did it, and he was talking about environmental toxins and the microbiome and rebuilding the gut 20 years ago, everyone couldn't understand. Why would we do this? Why would we? Now all of a sudden, it's greatly accepted. But what would you say in the field when you're out there? Do you have people that ever come at you on TikTok because of what your role is?
Absolutely. I still have people, even though we have come so far in science, I still have people that say that what I'm saying is pseudoscience, and I still have people that that say that um, depression is um, they'll say that depression is a spiritual problem and not a mental problem. And and it's unfortunate that people don't recognize it, that there is a small group of people that still don't recognize mental illness as chemical imbalance. I know there was a study that came out a couple of years ago that has been very largely misquoted and misused about serotonin's role in depression. And I have people say, well, there's a study that debunked serotonin's role in depression. I'm like, it didn't. It just said serotonin's not the only factor in depression. And it didn't say serotonin is not a factor. It said serotonin isn't the only factor. And when we focus on gut microbiome, we're not just fixing a serotonin problem. When we focus on gut microbiome, we're fixing a digestive problem. We're fixing an ability to extract nutrients from our food, getting the right nutrients in our food. We're fixing a GABA problem and a norepinephrine problem. So, um, you know, our GI tract is where we choose to. We make a conscious choice to put something in our body that could help us or harm us. And I say we make a conscious choice. We do it every day, and we don't really think about it. And it is one of the easiest things that we can do to affect our overall health. But we just are in this daily grind of just grab and go. We're going
Right.
to eat whatever and we're going to go. We're not going to think about, is this nourishing my body? Is this hurting me, or is this helping me? And a lot of people don't want to, they don't want to think about that they have control. They don't want to believe that they have control of some of these things.
I think sometimes the diagnosis, people become married to the diagnosis, and it's almost like a scapegoat for us. You know, I'm ADD, I've got depression, I have anxiety. It ends up being a scapegoat rather than what am I going to do to scale this problem that I'm enduring right now, or what problem I'm having, and what is it that's out there that's going to help and assist me and heal me. I
Right.
think the mentality of healing is not Western medicine. We're used to dealing with the symptom, and we don't want to experience anything uncomfortable. But the idea of healing, sometimes there are, like you said, there's days whenever you're tapering, it's not, you're not feeling so great. Um, so it's a journey basically of knowledge that just continues to be unfolded. So when you're doing this, what practical advice do you do when you give when people are contemplating to do this? I mean, when they meet with you, what is some of the things that you start with? What
You mean,
practical things do you start having your people? So when someone contacts you and says, I am interested in tapering, what are the steps that you start asking them to do to modify their life in order to do it? I mean, we've talked about diet, but I mean, how do you set a person up for success when they come to you?
that's a great question. So I think it's important that before a person starts tapering, that they do have good control of their symptoms. Like if you are experiencing a trauma and you're not well controlled on your medication at that time, that's not the time to start tapering. We want to get you we want you to be optimally mentally well and physically well when we start that process. So having a routine is something that I try to work with people on, making sure that they're getting a good night's sleep, 8, 9 hours of sleep, that they have an outlet to deal with stress and anxiety and anything that comes up. Maybe that is having a therapist that they can go to. Maybe that is they go for a walk, but that they have some kind of outlet. And also, as they begin the taper process, they need to be well connected with their prescriber. So if they do have a that they can get in touch with that person quickly. So we don't want someone to start a taper and I know you said you don't really call it a taper, but we don't, what I see so often is that doctors will say, well, we're going to have this for 2 or 3 days, and then we'll quarter it for a couple of days and then stop. And then, and you can come back and see me in 3 months.
Yeah, I hate
What is
those.
going to
What
happen?
those phone calls I absolutely hate when they call us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Because
the people are so destabilized and it's so difficult because the way I look at it, it's kind of like, there's therapeutic things we can do to support our body. And it's sad when a doctor gives them absolutely nothing to support the body. It's kind of like you were in a car accident and they say, just go home and go lay down on the bed.
yeah,
There's therapeutic things that absolutely can do that make a huge, profound difference.
but that's
So
not what we're taught. That isn't what we're taught. And so we
straight from
really,
the house. Yeah, you're right. You're not. We've talked to Dr. Campbell. We talk to doctors all the time. We've talked to Ivy League ones, to everyone, and they're like, I was not taught that.
no,
So
you
can you
really have
share any of your success stories that you've been working with, examples of individuals that you've helped work with this?
I actually have several, but I'll tell you about. I have one gentleman that I love him. He's fantastic. He came extremely depressed on probably 18 to 20 meds a day.
Wow.
He was overweight, high cholesterol, heart disease, history of heart attacks, um, just had just gone through a divorce, just in a really bad place, but with the motivation of wanting to be well. And he had talked to his doctor, and his doctor was not really willing to work with him on any natural solutions. And so I started working with him on some dietary changes, healing his gut microbiome. And not only did we see improvements in his mood and his motivation, that led him to being able to exercise and kind of get out and be more social, but he lost 60 pounds. He has gotten off of his cholesterol medication. Those weren't even our main goals.
Right.
Our main goals were to focus on his mental health. But when we were able to get his mental health back, when we were able to get him feeling good and wanting to get out and do things and motivated to get out and exercise, then all of those physical benefits just followed. And it's just been great seeing him through this whole process.
That's
And
cool.
yeah,
That's so
yeah,
nice. That's the way I feel too. Like I've always had weight issues throughout my life. I didn't do this for my weight, and people will see me as, oh, you've lost weight. I have, but I didn't do this for my weight. I started doing it for my health. And I eat
right,
for my health now, which is very different. It doesn't mean that I don't love chocolate and don't love all these different things. I just know what things bring me to a state of peace and my body feeling good. So that's what I'm very committed to right now in my life. So that's beautiful when you bring someone to that. And it happens to be the byproduct is all the other things. Like you say, when we rebuild our microbiome, all of a sudden our skin looks better, our mood improves, our hair is growing. And people say, well, I didn't expect all these other things. Well, you're taking care of your gut, you're taking care of your health. So, um, being out as an activist and coming out in a very traditional field, I applaud you. I mean, honestly, anytime I find people that do this, I love that. Not because this integration, this integrative approach is what the world is craving and wanting. We're not asking people to, we're just asking people, there is a science behind the mental health aspect. And when we start dealing with the science, that's when we really see the tire hit the road and we start making a difference. So,
yeah.
so when you've gone on to TikTok and you become this person that's going out there and doing this, are you noticing the backlash from other pharmacists?
I do notice some from other pharmacists and some from other healthcare practitioners sometimes, yes. And I
Sometimes.
just encourage them to go and read the medical literature.
That's why I
Because
love it, because
there.
people like you, they're like, here's the medical literature. We're telling you, we're doing it on and on. So this is great. Well, I really appreciate everything that.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. For information about Alternative to Med Center, give us a call at 888 984 9667.